The old priest's memories. The evening was quiet. I sit by the window, watching the stars twinkle in the dark sky. My hands hold a cup of warm tea, and the gentle steam rises into the air. The room is silent, but my mind is full of memories. I am an old man now, but the stories of my past feel as fresh as yesterday. When I was young, I became a priest. My life was simple, but I carried a dream in my heart. I wanted to help people, to bring light into their darkest days. I spent my mornings in prayer and my afternoons helping the villagers. They came to the church with their troubles, and I listened. One cold winter day, a man appeared at the church door. He was shivering, his clothes torn and dirty. His face was pale, and his eyes looked so sad. I walked to him and said, "Come inside. You need warmth and food." He didn't speak but nodded slowly. I gave him a blanket and a bowl of hot soup. He ate in silence. I didn't ask questions, but I stayed near him. After a long time, he spoke. His voice was low and shaky. He told me his name was John. John had lost everything. He lost his job, his home, and even his family. He said he didn't know how to live anymore. His words broke my heart. I didn't know how to fix his life, but I knew I could give him kindness. I felt a deep desire to help him, not just for one day but for as long as he needed. John's story stayed with me. It was the first time I truly understood what it meant to serve others. He was only the beginning. Over the years, many people like John came into my life. Each one brought their pain, and each one left with a little more hope. The days after John arrived were challenging but full of purpose. He stayed in the small room behind the church, a place we used to store old books and candles. I cleaned it and gave him a bed, a warm blanket, and some clothes that villagers had donated. I cleaned it and gave him a bed, a warm blanket, and some clothes that villagers had donated. John began to share more of his story. He used to be a carpenter, skilled with his hands. But when his workshop burned down, he lost everything. He tried to start again, but bad luck followed him. He felt forgotten by the world. I didn't have much to give, but I encouraged him to help me with the church repairs. The roof needed fixing, the wooden benches were broken, and the garden was overgrown. John hesitated at first, but soon he found joy in the work. Every morning, we worked side by side. He hammered nails, fixed doors, and planted flowers. His hands, once rough from hardship, created beauty again. The villagers noticed the changes and started visiting the church more often. They brought food, tools, and words of encouragement for John. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, John sat beside me. "You saved my life," he said, his voice steady but emotional. I smiled and told him, "You saved your own loaf, John. I only reminded you of your strength." He nodded. but I could see tears in his eyes. The church became a home for John. He no longer looked like the man who first came to me. His shoulders were straighter, and his eyes had a spark of hope. The villagers began to trust him, and some even asked him to build furniture for their homes. One day, John came to me with an idea. "Let's build a workshop near the church," he said. "I can make things to sell and help others like me." His excitement was contagious. I agreed, and together, we started planning. It was the beginning of something wonderful. The new workshop was built with the help of the villagers. Everyone contributed in some way. Some brought wood, others offered tools, and a few gave their time and energy to help us build it. It was a simple structure, but it was strong and full of promise. John worked tirelessly. His hands were steady as he carved, hammered, and painted. Soon, the workshop was filled with tables, chairs, and small wooden toys. People from nearby villages came to see his work and place orders. John's skill brought life back to his eyes, and his laughter became a regular sound around the church. One day, a young boy named Peter came to the workshop. He was thin and shy, with torn clothes and no shoes. "Can I work here?" he asked softly. John looked at me, and I nodded. "Of course," John said with a smile. "Let me show you how to hold the tools." Quote. Peter quickly became John's apprentice. John was patient, teaching him the basics of woodworking. The boy's confidence grew with each new skill he learned. He even started helping with the church repairs on weekends. The villagers noticed the change in Peter, and they were proud of him. Over time, the workshop became a place of hope. Other people who were struggling came to us. Some had lost their jobs, others were looking for a second chance. John welcomed them all. He taught them what he knew, and together, they made beautiful things. The money from selling the furniture was used wisely. Part of it went to the workers, part to the church, and part to help those in need. The workshop became more than a place to work, it became a symbol of new beginnings. One evening, as we sat in the garden, John looked at the stars and said, "I never thought I could be happy again, but now, I feel like I have a family." His words warmed my heart. I had seen him transform from a broken man into a leader. It reminded me why I became a priest in the first place, to help others find their way. As the days passed, John's workshop grew. The villagers helped him, bringing wood, nails, and even old tools from their homes. John worked tirelessly, crafting beautiful tables, chairs, and cabinets. His skill was unmatched, and soon, people started coming from nearby villages to buy his work. John's life changed, but so did the lives of many others. He hired a few villagers to help him in the workshop. They learned quickly and were grateful for the work. One by one, they found hope and purpose. The village began to flourish. I watched all of this unfold, and my heart filled with pride. It wasn't just the workshop that had changed, it was the entire village. People started to smile more. They talked to each other, helped each other, and shared what they had. There was a new spirit of kindness in the air. John became a respected man, not because of his work, but because of his heart. He never forget the kindness I showed him. He often said, "You gave me the chance to be who I really am." One afternoon, as we sat together outside the church, John turned to me with a serious look on his face. "Father, I want to thank you for everything. Without you, I would still be lost." Quote. I smiled and placed my hand on his shoulder. "You found your way, John. I just helped you see it." John nodded, and I could see the tears in his eyes once again. But these weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude. The life he once thought was over had turned into something beautiful. As I grew older, I continued to watch John and the villagers grow. I knew that my time on this earth was coming to an end, but I felt at peace. I had helped change one life, and that life had changed many others. One cold winter day, I received a letter. It was from John. He was now a man of importance in the village, respected by everyone. The letter was simple, but it touched my heart. He wrote, "Father, I have built a new chapel in the village, and I want you to be the first to bless it. You have given me a new life, and I want to share my joy with you." I felt a deep warmth in my heart as I read his words. John had come so far, and now he was giving back to the village. The chapel was beautiful. It was small, but it had a sense of peace that could only come from a place of love and care. The villagers were proud of it, and they filled the chapel every Sunday. I arrived at the chapel with my walking stick, my body frail but my spirit strong. The villagers greeted me with smiles and warmth. I saw John standing near the altar, his eyes shining with happiness. "Father, I am so glad you could come," he said, taking my hand. "It means the world to me." I smiled at him, proud of the man he had become. "You have done something wonderful, John. You have built not just a chapel, but a place where hope lives." I blessed the chapel, and the people of the village gathered to pray. As I looked around, I realized how much had changed. The village, once full of sorrow, was now full of life. People had found work, hope, and each other. Later that evening, as the sun set, and the village quieted down, I sat alone in the chapel, reflecting on my life. I had given so much to the people, but I had received so much more in return. Watching John and the villagers grow had been my greatest joy. As I walked back to the church, I knew that my time was coming to an end. But I was content. I had lived my life with purpose, and I had seen the power of kindness. In the end, that was all that mattered. I watched John as he worked hard, building the church brick by brick, stone by stone. The people of The village stood by his side, giving their time, their energy, and their money. After many months of labor, the church was completed. It was beautiful, and it filled my heart with joy to see everyone so happy. The church had become a place of peace and love, just as I had dreamed. Years passed, and the village blossomed. The people grew kinder and more helpful, and the church played a big part in making them better. John became a strong and capable leader. Together, we worked to help the poor and the sick, reaching out to those in need from all corners of the village. I saw all of this unfold before me, and my heart swelled with pride. John had changed. The man who once felt lost had become a guiding light for so many. He had helped countless people, fulfilling the very purpose I had prayed for. One quiet evening, as I sat alone in the church, I felt the years catch up with me. But I was not sad. I looked around at the church and the people it brought together. A smile spread across my face as I thought, I have done my work. I have helped many people. That night, I left this world, but my work didn't end. John and the people of the village carried on, keeping the church alive and spreading love and kindness. That night, I felt my time had come. I closed my eyes, knowing that my journey was ending. Yet, deep in my heart, I was at peace. I trusted that John and the people of the village would carry on, keeping the church alive and spreading love and kindness. In the days that followed, the village remembered me. They spoke of the hope I had brought into their lives and how I had helped them believe in themselves. My work had not been in vain, and I knew that my efforts had left a lasting gift for them all.